What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 29 of Destination Talk. I'm John Poz.
And I am Harry, and we are coming to you again from Chop Studios, located at 750 Route 34 in Mattawan, New Jersey. And we thank you again to our sponsor, the Academy in Garwood. To schedule your free class for your athlete, you can reach them at 908-540-6936. As you can see today, we do not have a guest sitting in the center here today or virtually on the screen, because as we are approaching episode number 30, we thought this would be a good time at episode 29 to kind of sit back and reflect on the previous 28 episodes that we've had, 27 of them, which we had guests, at least one guest. Episode 14 had two guests that were located in two different states. That was Coach Kit Harris, the head women's wrestling coach at Baker University, and one of their most decorated athletes, Kat Heath, who was in Texas during that broadcast. And not too long after, fun fact, after that episode, she was named an assistant coach at Baker University. So congratulations, Kat. So 29 episodes in the bank here, about to be. Did you ever think we'd get this far?
No, honestly, I remember our first episode, but Yara. Actually, no, our first episode was just us. It was just us. And then, our first guest was Yara. But to believe that it's been, how many months, you think?
We started in November.
So is that a long time?
Yeah, I think by the time this airs at some point in August, we'll be about 8 months into it.
Yeah, no, I never would have thought we'd get this far and grow how much we have, and we learned a lot, right? We started doing a lot of things on our own.
Yeah, I think we should. It would be remiss if we don't at least thank Aaron Ives, who was a part of this show, although no one ever saw him. We tried valiantly to get him on the show, but he would not come on as a guest. He preferred to stay behind the scenes. But for the first 13 episodes, Aaron was our behind the scenes guy. He handled putting out a lot of the episodes. So he was a huge part in this podcast getting off the ground.
Yeah. We knew nothing coming in. We didn't know how to do the editing, nothing. We were just starting from scratch and kind of figuring it out as we went. And 29 episodes in. So.
Yeah, and then it was around episode 14 that we had to learn everything.
Yeah. But I think that made us, better to get to where we are now, through learning and everything. And just listening to everybody that come on and all the stories definitely brought what we're doing to an even bigger picture.
Oh, it has. And I think, sharing some of the behind the scenes of what has gone on over these last X amount of months is that what the viewers and the listeners don't see are the numerous conversations that you and I have leading up to these episodes. I think we probably talk at least 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah.
We're going over ideas. We're talking about future guests. There was a time there where we were teaching each other how to post these videos. I think, it would be helpful to kind of have just a little overview of how it goes. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but I think from start to finish, once Dave, our producer here at Chop Studios, who's also the owner of it and who was on episode 5, a great episode. You might want to go back and check that one out as well. Once he does the cleaning up of these videos and we get our hands on it, depending on how long it takes to upload the videos, the process to go from start to finish is anywhere from 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, and Harry's been doing great with learning how to use Opus and all those fun things. So, but I think something we need to touch on before we even get any farther into this is what our vision, what our mission was, and how we got the name Destination Talk.
Well, Destination Talk kind of had a couple of origins in a way, I guess you can say. We created a little bit of a seasonal ritual pre and post for your wrestling career, where we'd go to Destination Dogs in New Brunswick. It's a wonderful hot dog place.
Great hot dogs,
as we had said in episode 1. So if you'd like to sponsor us, Destination Dogs, please let us know. But we would go there, and then I remember I was sitting on the sofa with, now my wife, at the time my fiance, when this was all going on, Dana, and I ran some ideas through her, and she goes, I think you have to have destination in the name, because that's where you and John kind of came up with this idea.
Yeah, and I also think there's a whole nother level to it.
Yes.
Finding people's destination, finding how they got through their journey, whether it's as an athlete, as a coach, as a business owner, whatever it is. People learning about people's stories, their journeys, and seeing how they got to their destination really brings it to a whole nother level.
I would agree, and I'll add to that in a moment. But I think also too is this platform, at least for me, never existed when I was coming up through the ranks of being a high school and a collegiate athlete. Social media was certainly not what it is today. All of these platforms, it's amazing. I can watch even my high school athletes compete if I want to on some streaming network. That never existed before. And then you talk about destination. Well, I've certainly learned a lot about myself in these last, 6 to 8 months of doing this. One, I never was comfortable hearing my voice or seeing myself on camera. Now, I guess there is some truth to this. As you get older, you stop caring. So I've definitely, I think
You're
I've reached.
still young. Harry.
Yeah,
Come on.
I am, but I'm at that point where I really don't care what anyone says or thinks anymore. So I realize that we are putting out a product that is helping people, and we have heard some very positive things about what we're doing.
100%.
It's just, we want to tell a story that otherwise could not be told. And we've had some amazing guests on from many different places.
A lot of different places, a lot of different sports, everywhere.
Yeah, and we've got some surprises coming up in the future. So we're going to be diving into some other sports. I guess I'll kind of tease a little bit. We're going to have something hopefully with Ultimate Frisbee coming up soon.
Harry finds the most elaborate sports. If there's anything that needs to be found, Harry will find it.
Yeah, I'm working on potentially rugby. Possibly. We haven't touched into that. Yeah, I think maybe we should talk a little bit about that. John will. I get excited, right? I get excited with these things. I'll shoot him a text. I found a guest, and he'll call me up, and he's like, "Where did you find this person?" and if I'm being fair, it's a lot of it's through Instagram. It's following those who like our product, looking and reaching out. I think episode 25, Coach Ford at the University of Idaho, he liked one of our posts. I clicked in, saw who he was. And I think if there's something I've learned from this is that what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
They don't respond. They say no.
Correct.
So I just sent out a nice message to him. We have a mission statement that I'll send out to people who aren't aware of who we are. And within a day, he got back to me and he said, "I'd love to be on." And then, it's the haggling of what works best for timing and days and everything. But, Coach Ford was episode 25, and that was definitely one of the episodes I was excited for.
Yeah, and I think another thing, kind of backtracking, is big picture. This is all about networking too. We're building such a network. You have all of our episodes listed right there.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at them right here now.
And we just grew. We're talking to people that we never knew you'd talk to ever.
No, I think that's the great part about all of this. Obviously, Coach Ford was episode 25, but if I go back to episode 12, that was Carleaf Taylor. If you haven't seen that episode, I strongly recommend watching it. That was a very powerful episode.
100%.
And I believe, Carleaf was the first person who I just randomly cold DM'd and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Would you like to be on the show?"
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it worked. Obviously, he was episode 12. But we met a wonderful person, and he and I, since that airing, have talked numerous times. And to your point, the networking, there are individuals that, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, but I never thought I would be talking to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never thought I'd talk to somebody in Kansas or Texas or Idaho or any of these places. And the more we grow, the more people we'll have on, the more stories we'll have. And I think it's all about the deeper conversation we have too. If you really look into these episodes and see the real message behind what everyone's saying, and everyone has their own, like the episode with Coach DeMarco.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that one because he dropped so much great knowledge, and I've known him for a while. He was my strength coach all through through college, and just being able to get in those deep conversations. And for me, selfishly, it's being able to hear those conversations and reflect it into my own life and my own, my own career and everything that I do. So I'm definitely learning and adapting and seeing how things go, but listening to these deeper conversations and taking it to another level is something that I really, really enjoy myself.
Yeah, and Mike DeMarco, he was episode 20 for us, and he's another individual that I have spoken to since his episode came out. We've had a few conversations as well, and I think there was a funny moment. Well, I guess you could say funny moment in a sense. One of the questions that we tend to ask a lot of our guests, especially as our show has been evolving, is if you, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell your younger self? And without hesitation, because most guests will sit, reflect, and think about that
They'll
for a
ponder
moment.
for a second. Yeah.
Without hesitation, as if he was anticipating the question, he goes, "I would have never owned a gym." And so the reason why that one hit a little hard for me, because as you can see, I'm wearing my Academy shirt. This is a business that I co-own. We are a sports performance center for training athletes. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, that's what I'm doing right now. I need to find out why he feels this way. And that's what has led to us having quite a few conversations after the fact.
Yeah. And I think, not just that scenario, but everything that we talk about, it brings that deeper conversation. It also brings more of us thinking and us growing as people and us growing mentally and being able to talk in public. I mean, we're not in public, but we're talking everybody on the camera.
Well, I didn't go to school for this.
I mean, I kind of did, but
I don't have a journalism background or anything like that.
I mean, in high school, if you knew me, I'd said, 5 words, 6 words? I mean, I wasn't really a talker. Now I don't shut up sometimes, but finding those deeper conversations and growing as individuals, and then the people who listen, our listeners, growing themselves through the conversation that we have with all of our guests, is definitely a mission that at least for me, would love to have everybody, grow off of.
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, and I've said this before. This was the reason why this podcast came to be is that, and I said, you had a story, I had a story, but then it was like, the story's only going to carry us so far. Like we could do 1 or 2 episodes, maybe we could stretch 3 out of it, but then it was done. And that's how this whole idea came about of, we can start with our story and then find others to tell theirs and sort of tie ours into it as well. You talk about, you mentioned networking and so forth. I had a situation too, like, episode 22 was Coach Chad Parks. And, he's the wrestling coach at Shawnee Heights High School, I believe another school in Kansas, if I'm not mistaken.
Loves the Midwest, Harry.
Yes.
Loves the Midwest.
No, we're going to get out there eventually.
I hate the Midwest. I'm sorry. I'm just being quite honest.
I know you said that. I know.
I've been there way too many times, and I hate the Midwest. Put me on a beach in Miami.
Well, I'll get to Coach Parks. It's Coach Ford. If you see this, we'll be reaching out to you after the season. We are strongly considering a trip out to Idaho to see a game next year.
Yes.
So we will be in touch with you. So don't forget about us. But if I go back to Coach Parks, he wrote a book, and then he also referred us to Bob Bodine, who was like his dream guest that he wanted to get on, and Mr. Bodine had written 2 books. And of course, if you don't know by now, I love to read.
Harry loves to read, guys.
And I went out and bought all 3 books. And one of Bob Bodine's books was like The Power of Who. I hope I'm getting that right, but I'm somewhat close to that. And the message behind that book is that we already know people to go to when we need to seek advice or help. And so, there was someone that reached out to me on Instagram that was asking a question that I didn't have really an answer to, or anyone that I thought was in my network, but I had just finished reading that book, and I was like, wait a second, I know Coach Parks. Let me reach out to him. Because Coach Parks had his own podcast where he interviewed many people. And I'm like, well, maybe he's got someone in his network. And sure enough, I would say within 20 minutes of sending that text, he was getting back to me saying, I've got this person, I'm going to connect them. So that's been kind of fun. It's been cool.
It goes back to building the network, building connections, and taking these connections that we make in helping others and sharing stories and bringing it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I would agree. So, neither one of us are parents at this point in our lives. So it's like, but it's like parents saying they don't have a favorite child, but in reality they kind of do. So I know this is a tough question, but what would you say has been the favorite episode for you? I know what the most entertaining episode was for me, and I'll get to that. And if it's the same as yours, that's fine. But which one would you say?
I'm gonna go back to Coach DeMarco.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that episode. I feel like everything he said. I watched that episode back like 7 times, 8 times, and just listened to everything because what he was saying, not just from his career himself, but kind of to where he is now and what he's doing in life. If you guys don't follow him.
I would definitely follow him.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of great knowledge. And that was one I really enjoyed just from what he was saying and the engagement behind it, and that has to be one of my favorites. I'm not saying I didn't like any other ones, but that one is definitely.
No, I mean, listen. Out of 29 episodes, you have to have one that stands out, and it's not a slight against anyone because they've all been amazing episodes.
I could have gave the generic answer. I'm like, I don't have a favorite, guys.
Yeah,
but
no. I'm not going to give the generic answer myself. You know where I'm going with this one. My most entertaining episode was episode 9, Jackson Turley. So we got to share a little bit of a behind the scenes on this. So as we were kind of leading up to this episode, I had never met Jackson in person. I had seen him wrestle many times at Jersey Mike's Arena, being John's teammate for the last 4 years at Rutgers University. Well, maybe 5, I guess.
He was there a while.
He was, as were you.
I know.
But there was just something about Jackson that I wanted to engage and meet him.
Jackson definitely gives an aura that is different than a lot of other people.
Well,
I've cut weight with Jackson. I've been around him a very long time, and he's definitely an interesting individual. I knew that episode was going to be fireworks once we started going.
And
with
I
it.
think that's a great lead into this very funny behind the scenes.
You love this situation.
I do.
Love this situation.
I have to tell this story because the listeners don't know this. Like, there's only a select few people that know what happened. Yeah, really, they only know what happened, and Jackson for that matter. But one of the questions we asked Jackson during that interview was, what's a pre-match ritual? What is something that you do to get relaxed or just get focused? And he said he liked to kick a soccer ball around. Now, I'm not going to lie. I did find that to be a little different.
He was really good with the soccer ball, too. He'd do like the kicks and throw it over.
I know hockey players do that a lot because they have to be able to use their feet to kick the puck to their stick. But this was something that Jackson would do prior to matches. Well, somewhere out there in the universe, there was a former wrestler, and I don't know his name, and it's, I apologize for not knowing his name, and I don't remember what school he wrestled at, but he had a very strong opinion on this, and at one point, I believe it was somewhere, I don't want to be inaccurate with this, but somewhere between 5 to 7 continuous stories that he posted on his Instagram, basically disputing this. And it was...
Harry loves the drama, guys. Harry loves the drama.
It was fascinating, by the way. So after I watched this, my very first words to Poz were, we have to get this guy on the show. And I understood where John was coming from. He's like, no, we can't do this. And I got it. This is his teammate, Jackson. He didn't want to be in the middle of it. So I proposed, hey, if you don't take any offense to this, sit this one out. Let Dave and I interview him.
I made the adult.
But
go ahead.
Listen, controversy sells, regardless of whether we like it or not. I thought, listen. This individual was a collegiate wrestler. He had a story to tell. We certainly would have gone into that and given him the opportunity to have had that platform to tell his story and to give him his side and his version as to why he felt what Jackson was saying was, I guess, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what he felt might have been nonsense. But I will say this. If you're still listening and watching our podcast, please reach out to me. I will figure out a way how to talk to you.
Maybe we'll talk to him.
Please reach out to us. I would love to really understand why you felt that way.
All right, so switching from the most fun or whatever that was, Which episode do you believe was the most emotional or impactful episode that we've had so far?
That there's a tough one. It really comes down to two for me. I think, like I said, I mentioned Carleaf's episode, episode 12. I don't want to get into the story. I guess that's the tease. Go watch it. What he went through and had experienced as when he was younger, to where he ultimately got to, on an NFL field in Cincinnati wearing a New York Giants uniform. So, that one left an impact on me. And I guess it's kind of hard not to say episode 17, which was Eric LeGrand's episode. What made that episode so much fun was our, up to this point, our first and only on-site remote episode.
Yeah, definitely go check that one out. That was definitely a great episode. And Destination Talk on the Road, first one.
It was Destination Talk on the Road. We are trying to find other ways to get out there. So I would say, again, if you're interested in having us, just reach out to us. We'd be happy to travel.
We travel.
Yeah, we travel. we travel. Well, this guy especially travels quite a bit.
Love to travel.
Yes. we'll be getting there ourselves together soon enough. But I think the Eric episode, like I said, episode 17 was cool because we had the backdrop of that brick wall, his logo. The lights were coming down on us. It was very different. It was on site. He has an amazing coffee shop in Woodbridge, New Jersey. If you're local to the area, I strongly suggest going to check it out.
He's got whiskey too.
Yes. We got the bourbon.
I'm sorry.
Bourbon. I don't want to upset those.
I never had it. I haven't.
No, I have not had it either, but I did find out that a local store next to my facility in Gorwood is now carrying it.
There you go.
So it's only about a 5-minute drive away for me to kind of scoot over there and check it out. So maybe by the time this episode has aired, I will have had it, and I'll have a follow-up at a later date as to how it is. But no, those were my two episodes.
I think for me, the two that stick out for me is Yara, kind of hearing his story. A kid from Belarus that came over to the States, went to Harvard, graduated from Harvard, graduated from Rutgers. I mean, he's one of my best friends. It was my teammate forever. Still talk to him, all the time. We went mini golfing for his birthday. 27-year-old, Yara's 27, going out for mini golfing. But it was a good time there.
And you have a funny story that we cannot share about Yara out at the end of December.
Yes.
There is, unfortunately, we cannot share that story because it might get us in trouble. But you have a very funny story that you could ultimately share at a later time.
Yara's story and the way he got from where he was to where he is now is just something that people write books about. It's something that is.
It's not something that we can relate to.
No, not anyone who grew up around here definitely cannot relate to it. I mean, his brother was such an impact to him, and listening to his episode about how much his brother helped him get to where he was is something you definitely got to go watch.
That was episode 2. Episode 2,
yes.
and a shout out to Yara because he was our very first guest in studio or remotely. He was our first guest.
And I think if I had to pick a second one, it would be Sam Kamara.
Well,
I grew up in Colonia. Carteret's not too far from me. A kid from Carteret who made it to the NFL, made it to the big leagues. I mean, just kind of seeing how his journey went and his story, and the hard work and dedication that he had to put into it, and he's still writing his career. His career is still in the moment. He's at the Cleveland Browns, right?
Yes, he's still with Cleveland.
It's just a really, really cool story, and seeing how Yara and Sam got to where they are now is all about what this podcast is about. It's the destination, the journey behind it. And,
I think we did a very good job with the title of this podcast because that is exactly what that was.
Correct.
And Sam was episode 13. And, just a quick background, like you said, he went to Carteret High School. He ultimately played college at Stony Brook University. Again, these aren't like your well-known, like bigger schools that produce NFL talent, so to speak. But, he hooked on with the Chicago Bears, got into 9 games his rookie year, and then, was toiling back and forth with Cleveland between the active roster, the practice squad, and, as we sit here and talk, and when this episode airs, which will be probably right around preseason will be going on at that point in August, Sam will be entering his 5th season in the NFL with the Cleveland Browns. And I certainly have an emotional attachment to Sam. I trained him for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I also trained his brother, Chris, his cousin, Sam. They are an amazing, wonderful family, hardworking, respectful. And so, yeah, you're rooting for the good guy in that sense, and you're happy to see someone like that accomplish and come out on the other side with all that hard work.
Mm-hmm. I think another place we need to talk about is we had athletes, we've had coaches, we've had business owners, but an episode I want to talk about is Nick Costco.
Yes.
A guy who is behind, not really behind the scenes, but behind the scenes, not, on the field, on the mat, coaching or he's the voice behind the sport.
Yes.
And I think that was a really cool episode for me because he's commentated a lot of my matches. Yes. And being able, and he interviewed me a lot of times too, being able to interview him and see the other side of what sport is like, not on the mat, on the field.
No, and Nick was episode 21. And yes, I mean, I have to agree. And I've said this numerous times throughout our episodes. I didn't know much at all about collegiate wrestling till I met you in 2019, 2020. Mm-hmm. So for me, Nick has also been really the only voice I've heard calling matches because up until very recently, I would only watch Rutgers matches. It wasn't like I would just sit, like so-and-so's wrestling or this one's wrestling outside of the national tournament.
Correct.
Which you then would hear different voices.
Daniel Cormier, Jordan Burroughs, all those guys.
So, and they do a wonderful job. But, it was fun to have Nick in here because, he's affiliated with On3. He does, high school football, obviously Rutgers wrestling. He's dabbled in a little bit of basketball and baseball as well. He's down in the South Jersey area. What I didn't know that particular day was where he drove from just to get here to be in studio that afternoon on a Friday, nevertheless.
Yeah.
Where he was coming from was not a very short drive. It was a very long one. So I appreciate him taking the time out of his busy schedule to want to be here for us.
Yeah, personally, I mean, sometimes we have to do them on Zoom or was it on the camera?
Yeah, remotely.
But I really love the in-person content we provide because being able to talk to somebody in person, have that eye contact, have that a little more, in-person feel to me definitely brings another level to our podcast.
I agree. And the in-person is a lot of fun because you physically get to meet people.
Correct.
But the remote has been also, for me, amazing because it has allowed us to talk to and meet individuals we may have never contacted before.
Correct. I mean, Michigan, Kansas, Idaho.
I mean,
all
we
these
had Michael Horo, episode 16 from Ohio. That was another person I just randomly DM'd on Instagram. And that's why I created the mission statement because I didn't want people to think that I was some lunatic out there.
Harry loves getting the DMs here.
Yeah, I think what it's done to this podcast for me as an individual, as a person, has helped me grow. And with we hear this a lot, but being comfortable with uncomfortable.
Correct.
Because as I said a little earlier in this episode, the worst that someone can do is say no.
Yeah, and that goes for anything in life. It's
absolutely.
not just asking somebody to go on our podcast.
I reached out to a gentleman not that long ago. I won't say who he was, but he had just written a book. Again, another book, and I bought it and I read it, and
loves books.
I found it to be very impactful, and I just introduced myself. And he was kind enough to respond to me, and just at this time, with other commitments, I cannot appear on the show. But if my schedule were to free up, I would be happy to come on. And that's what happens. You have to accept and respect what people's time and space. But I was able to at least talk to someone that probably prior to this I would have never had the courage, if you want, to reach out and say, hey, would you like to be on the show? Because prior to November, we didn't even have the show. But
So let's talk about our process in planning each episode and kind of give the audience a little more behind the scenes. And another thing, too, I want to say is if you look at our first couple episodes, we didn't have a cover. We didn't have an intro. Now, on every episode, you'll see an intro. Thanks to my fellow working friends who helped me with that intro. But
and the amazing work Dave does behind the scenes.
Yeah, Dave does really great work. Without Dave, we wouldn't have this studio. We wouldn't have any of the editing. Yes, we do a little bit on our own, but without other people's help, we wouldn't be here.
Well, Dave has completely taught us how to do this.
Correct.
Because if it weren't for Dave, we would probably have 25 episodes just waiting to be posted.
Yeah, definitely. But we're growing because of everybody that helps us,
Yes.
and us putting our minds together, having the covers of the thumbnail on all of our episodes so it looks more organized, having an intro into all of our podcasts now. I think these are things that'll definitely bring us to another level, and we're only going to grow even more. But just the creativity behind it. I mean, we're talking all the time on people to bring on maybe we should do this, maybe we should ask questions. I mean, we have a whole Google Doc of every question that we've came up with for every single person.
If we ever do become famous from this, and that was never the intent, but if it ever happens, I have all of the sheets with our questions and notes. I'm saving them. So at some point they might get put into a binder or their own book, and it'll be gibberish, but it'll cover our story at that point.
Maybe when we get to episode 100, we should write a book on of the 100 stories we've listened to.
So any publishers out there, just be happy to reach out to us. We'll be happy to work with you.
So what is something that you want to try new on the show, or if you have a dream guest in future episodes, give me a little bit of that.
I knew you were going to ask me this question. So, as far as dream guest, and I'm really shooting for the moon here on this one.
We like to call it whales.
Yeah. But because
or tuna. Was it tuna?
Tuna, whales, all the same.
Whales will bring it.
I think for me, just because of the absolute love and passion I have for the New York Rangers, Mark Messier. Probably will never happen, but if you're asking me who I would love to have sitting between us or on a screen in front of us, it would be Mark Messier. I was 19 years old when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in 1994. To me, that man could do no wrong. Mm-hmm. And to have delivered a Stanley Cup championship to the New York Rangers fan base at that point, I mean, I was only suffering 19 years, never mind the people who were suffering much longer. And we're at 30-something years at this point now, so suffering continues for us. But Messier would certainly be that person for me.
Awesome.
Do you have one?
I don't think I have just one. I mean, I have a lot of different names. I mean, in the wrestling world, I would love to talk to David Taylor. I mean, I know this is a long shot, but I would love to talk to Conor McGregor for the UFC. I mean, I'm a big UFC fan. That might have a little controversy in that episode with Conor, but I don't have just one person. I enjoy all the stories, and having more notable guests on makes the podcast, grow even more. And
I can say I do know that there is a contact in your phone list that if you ever did reach out to him, could possibly bring us closer to some of those guests.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
So you might want to tap into that one.
Yeah. But between both Harry and I, between the random Instagram DMs and the contacts that I have, the contacts that he has, we're going to keep bringing on really, influential guests and people that have really awesome stories, and we're going to continue to share with everybody, all of our listeners, and yeah.
Well, and I think it would be fair to say, like, when we look at some of the first episodes that we did, especially episodes, 2 through, let's just say 11 or up to 11, mm-hmm. they were individuals that I either trained, mm-hmm. That you knew personally, mm-hmm. and we were able to come together. But then one of the things that we do is, once our episodes are completed, we always thank the guests that we're on. We thank them for their time because they are taking time out of their day to be a part of this. But then we also say, hey, if you appreciated what we did, or mm-hmm. if you liked the finished product, mm-hmm. if you can think of anyone else that would benefit from being on the show, to either through us ourselves or the people, and that's how we got Coach Parks, because Coach Harris said, hey, I've got someone that I think would be great for your show.
100%.
And that's how we ended up getting Coach Parks on the show.
It goes back to what? Building that network.
Building the network.
And networking. I mean, now in my new line of work, working is my new life, but building a network, building relationships.
His adult life now.
My adult life, yes. Yeah. Well, there might be more things coming soon, but we'll see. I even talked to Harry about that. But
I guess when this is over, he'll be filling me in on those details.
Yeah. But building network, building relationships is something that we're building here, and it's going to continually grow. But a question I want to ask you, Harry.
Sure.
What was your favorite quote from a guest?
Well, I think it was what Sam it was the Sam episode, and that was now I'm blanking on it right now, and man, I feel foolish. He kept keeping the thing,
Keeping the thing,
but I don't think that's what it was. It was.
We'll find it and we'll clip it.
Yeah, we'll get it in there. But
keeping the thing.
It was something to that. He kept referring back to
keep the main thing.
Yes.
Keeping
the main thing. Yes, thank you. Yes. The main thing. We would ask him a question about, how does he prepare for the season? How does he approach his 5th year? And he would just sit here and, I've gotten to know Sam very personally. Like I said earlier, he's a wonderful person. He would just lean into the microphone. Keeping the main thing.
Yep, he said it a bunch of times.
And that was probably something. It's simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple. It's not complicated. It's it really keeps things in focus.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like mine.
Okay.
Mine was not from a guest. It's from you.
Oh, okay. Oh, this should be fun. Okay. Okay. I don't even know where you're going with this, but here we go.
Think, but don't think.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. Well,
you've said this before our podcast, but you've said it on the podcast a couple times.
I have. So. Okay, I think there needs to be some background to this.
But that is one of my I teach at Yale Street Wrestling Club, and I use that all the time. I'm like, guys, think but don't think, and I back to you all the time.
And I appreciate that, and I thank you. It's working with athletes as I've been doing since 2011. And we've touched on a lot of topics here. The mental side of it, overtraining. Some of our engaging topics have been about recruiting and the portal and all that stuff, but I think that with there being so much going on now, showcases and pro days and all that, you have to keep things in perspective. And I would say this to you all the time: think but don't think. There's this imaginary line that when you're behind it, you visualize what you want to do, but the moment you step up onto that line, you're either going to perform or you're not. There aren't too many opportunities to make corrections in the moment.
Correct.
You might have there might be a small tweak that you can make, but the reality is those tweaks are going to come after when you go back to practice.
I mean, especially at the highest level. I mean, wrestling in the Big Ten, there's no room for error. The littlest hand movement can make the biggest difference in a match. I mean,
it could be the difference between getting pinned or winning.
100%. I mean, it's and it goes for any sport. I mean, playing in the NFL, playing in the NBA, but specifically in wrestling, that's because that's what I did. But the littlest things can make the biggest difference in life. There's a quote right there. I just made one.
Yeah,
I didn't make it, but yeah, thanks.
Well, and I want to be sure that I do say this. In-game adjustments happen all the time.
All the time. And I can name a bunch of them that I've done just from my own career. But being able to think but don't think has gone with me for a while. And thank you, Harry, for saying that.
Well, that means a lot to me. And I know that that's something that I still share with my athletes today. And I hear that from my athletes all the time. I'll sometimes ask them a question and ask them to what did you think? But what did you think? You did or didn't do, and they'll give me the answer. But then they'll come back to me and say, "But yeah, no, I can't think about this.
Yeah,
I got to think about it right now. But now you're asking me to perform it again. I can't think about it."
And that's all like a psychological thing. I mean, you can get real deep into it. But
I mean, listen, Coach Coco and DeMarco and those guys, and actually Gene Zanetti, who was on, Wrestling Mindset. They're all the mindset guys that I certainly would go back and listen to all of their episodes, because that is becoming, and I won't go on this tangent, I promise, but that is becoming something very huge in youth sports today, and as we grow in the high school, college, and professional ranks, the NIL stuff, the transfer portal, there is so much money out there that was not there for collegiate athletes before. There's a lot of pressure that is now trickling down to the youth levels, and I just think, you have to just take a step back, understand why you're playing.
Yep.
It's to have fun. It's to have a good time. And somewhere around the high school bracket, that's when you kind of know if you maybe have a shot at the next level.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming a business way too early in early life sports for kids. They're having agents in middle school.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was getting recruited, it was very different. There was no NIL. There was
no.
If you got a full scholarship, you hit a home run. You hit a grand slam. Nowadays like, I need everything else with it. And we could talk about this forever.
Well, we can. But I'll add one last thing.
Yeah.
So you say about when you were going through it, when I was going through the recruiting process, if people did that, then universities got sanctioned. They lost scholarships. They got fined. They were banned. They couldn't perform. They couldn't compete in the playoffs because it was illegal.
It's the Wild Wild West now.
So now it has been. It's turned into it. I'm not taking a stance whether it's good or bad. I wish it was around when I was competing as an athlete in college. But I do think we have to keep things in perspective and understand that we are still dealing with young individuals, young adults, and not abuse it.
So I think as we're coming to an end here, any final thoughts, Harry? Anything you want to touch on? Go through our episodes, or
well, I mean, listen, I think we've been very fortunate, very blessed. Like I said, this is episode 29. So out of the 29 episodes, episode 1, episode 29 were you and I. There were 27 guests in between. I really want to take a moment to just thank every single one of them. I guess 28 guests because there were 2 guests in the one episode. So 28 guests over 27 episodes. I want to thank you all for being a part of this. You have all been a part of the launching this process off the ground and continuing to help us grow. And I would say, I guess, looking ahead to the future, I'm very confident that there'll be another 29 episodes when this is all said and done. We would like to take. I've been asked, what is the ultimate goal of this platform, of this podcast? And for a lot of times, I would say, it's just something that I do truly enjoy. It's I think for me in the world I find myself in as a sports performance coach, it's just another platform for me to, showcase what I am, who I am, and what I do, and how I help people. But I would be lying if I said, having now been involved in this for a while, that I would like to see this podcast take off and go to another level. And that if that means seeking sponsors or trying to find a way, if there's an opportunity to get our story out to help other people. I think that I've never lost sight of that. I know you haven't either. It's just, we do this. We're not looking to make money off of this. If I've had to say something, if we were looking for sponsors, it's to continue telling these stories. It's Correct. We're not looking to get rich off this at all.
It's a Saturday morning. We're here, doing this in our free time when we have long weeks, but we do this because we love it. We do it because it's fun, and we get to see and hear different stories and meet different people all over the country. Maybe the world soon.
Brandon Reed.
Yeah,
Brandon
Canada.
Reed, he was coming to us from Quebec, and let me just look up episode 18. Brandon Reed, episode 18.
Yeah, so we are global.
Not long after that episode, he spent 3 weeks in Europe doing a lot of clinics.
Yeah, and just being able to hear the stories and for everyone out there, if just help us by a way you can help us is just subscribing, sharing with other people, and kind of just spreading the word. And if you have any questions or any guests that you would like to see on or anything of that nature, feel free to send us a message, send Harry a DM. He likes cold DMs.
Yeah, I like DMs. I mean, you can reach out to me. But I think too, if there are any guests out there that from particular sports, or listen, if you know someone, and I'll say the same thing to our listening audience as well. If there is anyone out there that that you feel would be a good fit to have on Destination Talk, yeah, I know John is joking about it, but certainly reach out to us. You can go through Destination Talk. You can find us on Instagram at Destination Talk. YouTube is under the same name. Maybe by the time we get to episode 50 or 60, we'll have a new platform that I've learned. Who knows? But
we're constantly learning.
We're getting there.
Learning.
But if there is someone out there, or if even you yourself feel like you have a story you'd like to tell, reach out to us. We'll have a conversation. We'll see if it's worthy of having on the show. We'd love to hear from you. We'd like to hear great things, but at the same time, if you've got constructive criticism as to how we can get better at making this show better, we'd also appreciate that too.
We're learning as we go.
Yeah, I would say that. So,
but this was a great episode 29. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed our little recap of the first 29, and we'll get back to you on the next 29.
Yes, and I guess with that being said, that's a wrap on episode 29 of Destination Talk. We thank you very much again, and we may have a surprise for episode 30. We may not. We're working on that, but we'll see what we come up with.
We'll get creative.
But until then, we'll see you soon. Thank you.